Hello again, everyone, and welcome to today's Monday Meetup. This is Marie with BluHorn, and I will be discussing with you today our non-broadcast worksheets in BluHorn, which means anything except for radio and television, basically. I wanted to get a chance to show everyone the other capabilities that you may or may not be using within your BluHorn platform and how easy it really is to place all of the different media types and even keep track of some of your internal agency costs right within your BluHorn platform, which you can easily report on and pull everything together. And we have found that some of our even most seasoned veterans with BluHorn are not always taking advantage of all of the different types of worksheets that we do have available. So it's a good chance for us to just quickly walk through a few of those worksheet types and take any questions that you may have. As a quick reminder, if you're just logging in, I do mute all attendees during our session. This is just to keep things running along smoothly. However, if you have any questions at any time, please use the chat widget in your GoToMeeting control panel. You can type a message to the whole audience, or you can just use myself listed as organizer, and I will answer questions as they come in or as I get to them, or if we run out of time, I will make it a point to reach out to you so that we can connect following the call. We do record our Monday meetups. A few weeks ago, we were back on our live format. We will be going back to that in the next couple of weeks, where Wes and I are on the call together discussing our Monday meetup topic, as well as having a little bit of banter back and forth about some of the new things with BluHorn. Wes is out of town today, so we are back on our GoToMeeting session. However, we will be back on the BluHorn live format within the next couple of weeks. All right, so hopefully you can all still see my dashboard screen of the demo agency account. This is our login main screen for those of you who are new users, and hopefully you can see everything here. If you have any trouble with the screen share, please just let me know in the chat window. So from your agency, the most important thing to remember is you cannot create any worksheet type without having a vendor set up for it first. So make sure that you're aware that you will need to set up these vendors for any non-broadcast media style or type by going into your vendors section and clicking add a new vendor. Now, I just want to quickly remind you that anything other than Nielsen or ComScore is considered unrated. So all of these types that we're going to talk about today, which is digital, outdoor, print, and services, are all considered unrated media types. So they will be unrated worksheets. They are included in every subscription level. So whether you are a BluHorn Basic user or a BluHorn Ultra user, you all have access to these unrated vendor types, and you all have access to those types of worksheets. So you can see here, you can select your type. Let's say I'm going to enter an outdoor vendor, and you do it the same way as if you're entering an unrated broadcast style. So this would be demo outdoor vendor. We're going to make this my email address. And we're going to just take in a few other things. Now remember, you only have to have a vendor name. You don't have to include this other information. It is optional. You can add it at any time by editing your vendor, but really all you need is a vendor name and a type. You really don't have to have that other information, because in that second step, and don't forget it, once you hit save, this is where it comes into play. This is where you're going to be adding that vendor information, and that's where you add your market name. And this is again a replication of the market names that you already have in place. So if you have market names already established, obviously from your broadcast style worksheets, you can reuse those, or you can rename markets however you want. Now, this is a quick little tip here. Note that if you're doing digital, sometimes outdoor even, services for sure, you may want to have more of a overarching market name. There are no regulations as far as naming your markets within your BluHorn account. It doesn't have to be named by formal DMA names. So you could name a market national, for example, which is what we see a lot of our users do when they're naming digital vendors in particular, because most of the time, and I realize obviously there's exceptions to every rule, but most of the time with like a digital vendor, you can buy anywhere in the nation or the world. So you may want to call it national so that you could put all of those digital worksheets in the same place. Now we're going to name myself here as the digital vendor and just hit add market and rep. Now just remember that consistency counts. So if you want to be able to combine those vendors on the same sheet, so maybe I'm going to add a second digital vendor and I want to be able to include them on the same worksheet, just like with our broadcast style. You just need to make sure that the market name that you enter is the same. They do populate down below, just as you're used to seeing with your unrated broadcast style. And this is the same way that you will set things up for outdoor, print, also services and digital. You'll be setting them all up the same. So just keep that in mind as you're setting them up to name those markets in a consistent format. It certainly can be whatever you want, but that quick tip to remember is you can make them as broad or as narrow as you'd like. So if you want to be able to incorporate a vendor that you could buy across all clients or agency business, you could name it national and use it throughout wherever you'd like, especially with some of these broadcast or non-broadcast style worksheets. Sorry, there is a place for geo and the geo indicator on the worksheets, so you'll be able to narrow that down. It's not like you'll be naming it national and you're not going to be able to narrow that down on your worksheet. So let's delve into a few of them just so you can see what I mean. All right, so you do have to start with a campaign, which obviously you're used to if you're a veteran of BluHorn. If you're a brand new user, just know that you have to have a campaign in order to add worksheets. I'm going to go into some worksheets that we have already set up in these different worksheet styles so you can see excuse me, some of the information that we already have in there and get an idea as to how these work. So let's start with print as our first example. So I'm going to go into this one that we did as part of a webinar on print worksheets not that long ago. So print can be done from any, again, worksheet, or I'm sorry, subscription level, and you just add that print vendor as you would any other. This is in a demo campaign. You set your flight dates just like everything else with the campaign, and then within that particular worksheet as well, you'll be setting some dates. You'll note that there's not the weekly and monthly totals up here. That's because our print and other non-broadcast style worksheets are not bought on a weekly style like you would with a broadcast calendar. So there's not going to be the same pre-buy worksheet totaling at the top. However, your summary box is still here on the left-hand side, and as a reminder, you can X that out or re-show it at any time if you want more space. This is also in our traditional format. However, you can continue to use the Edit Worksheet button on all of these worksheet styles to switch to grid. All right, now here we are in a grid style, if you want to see this, of our print worksheets. And I just want to give you a quick tour of each of these styles and types of worksheets so you can get an idea of what information you can include. There is this drop down here where you can customize the columns that you see. Again, reminder that you can show all and hide all and with a quick click, or you can select them individually. You can hide what columns you're not using. And also, if you're in grid format, you have the ability to, customize the size of your columns. So hopefully you're all used to the grid format and those abilities. With our traditional format and layout, you still have the ability to hide columns. You just can't make the columns wider or narrower like you can here in our grid. Now you do have an option for a caption here on the side. This is a totally customizable field in our print worksheet. I'm actually going to hide the summary so we can see more at once. You have an insertion date. And for print, this obviously is a drop down of a calendar format, or you can straight type in this same format for the insertion date. This is where you'll select your vendor based on the vendors you have selected for the worksheet. You have the ability to add a size if relevant, and or you can leave it blank, as you can see. Now let's talk a little bit about some of the print calculations that are available on our print worksheets. You can enter columns and inches, much like you see a little bit more in the newspaper industry, columns and inches, and then you will see here a gross CPI, which will allow your system to automatically calculate this for you. So you can see if I switch to $6 and $20 and I change this to a $10 CPI, it's automatically calculating my gross cost. So it's taking columns and inches, and it's taking that cost per inch and calculating excuse me, the gross cost of your ad. If you have a gross color amount, which a lot of times, again, you're going to have to gross those up to enter them in. You can enter that, and it will add it to the cost of your ad. You can see it just changed that to add that in. You're also getting your net amount calculated for you, your net cost per inch, as well as the net cost of the ad. You don't have to use columns and inches. Just so you're aware, you can just straight type, and let's just delete this out just so you can see here. You can just straight type a gross cost of an ad right here. And you'll see it calculates the net for you. Again, determine it on the percentage that you have set up in your worksheet. Or you can also still add that color cost if you'd like, but you can basically skip the CPI calculator if you so choose. All right, so let's keep looking to the right here. Whoops, I went a little too far. I'm sorry. Got a little excited. The position column is where you can add if you have a position or any other indication you want to indicate to your rep in regards to position. Far forward, left hand read, right hand read, bottom, whatever you might use. And again, this is customizable. You don't have to use it. These are all optional fields. You can add a deadline, and you can utilize this just like you would with our other calendar types. You can enter a number. You can also enter a time for the deadline. So if it's due at noon, you can enter that in particular. And then you can add unlimited comments, just like with other worksheet types. All right, so let's take a look here down below. Just like our other worksheet types, when you're ready to create that insertion order, you go down below the worksheet line and click the down arrow here so you can customize what you want to see on your worksheet. You can select the vendor. If you have multiple, you can do them one at a time. You can utilize the comments and traffic just like you would on our other worksheets. And you can choose to remove or hide some of these columns based on your choice. Here, you can hide the comments or show the comments and utilize this. And you can also utilize the preview order just like you would on our other worksheet styles as well. If I had comments, they would appear in red just like they do underneath our broadcast style worksheet. So this might be a little small for you. I'm going to blow it up just a little bit. You can see that I had hidden a few of the other columns. So this is how it's going to look. Obviously in this one where I didn't add an ad size, you're going to see a 0 appear here. If you're not a person who's going to use this, you can hide this column entirely. It's very helpful if you're showing columns and inches, but if you're not going to use it, you can just hide it because it will still show your gross cost. So it's up to you on how you utilize it. And again, those comments and traffic will appear down here below where the signature line is if you populate them. You can also send these orders directly through the system using the send order button. So that's kind of the 2-minute overview on print. Now let's go back into this demo campaign and take a look at one of the other styles of worksheets. And again, if you have a question, please let me know. I have 2 pages of worksheets in this campaign. Whoops. All right, there's a digital worksheet in here, so that's where we're going next. This is our digital worksheet that was created again for a webinar. Again, you'll see the pre-buy worksheet information up here, including your flight dates and vendors that are included. You can use the edit worksheet button to add additional vendors, etc., change your dates just like you would in any other style. This one's in our grid layout, but again, you can use it in traditional if you so choose. You're still seeing your summary over here on the side. Oh, I forgot to touch on the impressions. We do have impressions available on all of our worksheet styles, so you probably saw that on print a minute ago. Obviously, they are also available here and ever important in our digital worksheet. I'm going to hide this so we can take a look at a little bit more information. Again, you can use the drop-down menu here to select what you want to show and hide when you're working in this digital worksheet. There's a lot of different information here. All right, so here you'll see, and some of these have been narrowed a little bit, the information that's available right now in our digital worksheet. Here's a little tip for everyone that's still on the call. We are in the process of really revolutionizing our digital worksheet. So we are making a lot of changes. You may have seen the digital survey come out not that long ago for user input on what you would like to see and need on a digital worksheet. And we are taking that all into account as we are revamping our digital worksheet. However, as of today, October 7th, this is where we are. So I wanted to show it to you still in today's call. Obviously, as digital worksheet changes come out, we will continue to release them to you. So you can give your a name to each individual line item. This is not required. It's an optional column that you can totally hide, but this is, again, customizable and optional. You can add a start date and an end date to your digital ad, which is more like a flight date that can be narrowed from your overall flight dates, obviously. The vendor is the same vendor selection dropdown. Keep in mind, if you don't have a vendor selected, you won't be able to create your orders. You do have a type here that you can use. This is really allows you to customize what type, and this is a straight typing field. So you could add social or OTT or whatever you might be buying in the digital realm. You can indicate in the type column. Again, this is optional as well, though, so you could totally delete it and skip it, and it is not required. So now let's talk about a few of the ways that our digital worksheet works, and I'm going to scroll over so you can see all of this. You have a place for impressions, which is indicated by the 3 zeros in thousands, so 5 obviously equals 5,000. You can customize how this appears in the edit worksheet column with the number of decimal places that you want to include. Some people want to get granular and include exactly 10,458 impressions. Some people just prefer to keep them at whole numbers. It depends on how you're buying, what you're buying. So we wanted to make that an option for you. So if you're using thousands and cost per thousand, obviously as I change these $10 with a $10 cost per thousand, it is automatically calculating my gross cost for me, as well as the net CPM and the net cost. So you see thousands cost per thousand, so it skips over. Thousands, the cost per thousand, gross cost. Now, if I'm going to use clicks and cost per click, you can skip this and go clicks, cost per click, and it gives you the gross cost. So here's my clicks. We're going to change this to 500 at a gross cost per click of 15. That's calculating it at $7,500. It's going to give me my net cost per click and the net cost. So you have the option to do it either way. So thousands and cost per thousand, clicks and cost per click, or you have the ability to just straight enter a gross cost. So you don't have to do any of the above. You could just enter a gross cost for a package and you're all set. Here's where you can enter a site or URL if you'd like to include that. We also have a space for a deadline here that operates just the same as the one we just saw in our print worksheet. And if I don't select anything, it's going to make it red. It's optional though, so it will leave it as zeros if you don't click on it. Here's where you can have unlimited comments and the geo indicator for your DMA or information. You also have the copy bold skip feature just like you do with other worksheets. We're going to drop down below so that we can customize the order and we can take a look at it. Again, here you're able to hide or show any columns that you'd like to for your particular vendor. You can also indicate comments and traffic here just like the other types. Let's take a quick peek at the worksheet style. And here it is. So you can see where I left things blank is obviously going to show blanks unless I hide this column. So you can hide these on the worksheet very quickly in that same drop down we were just in. You'll see comments here appear in red just like every place else. And with our digital worksheets, the geo indicator does appear in red italics as well. So they're very well indicated for your reps. Same way in place for a sign and a date, and there's also going to be a monthly summary calculated at the bottom. All right, so if we have no questions there, we can move on to our outdoor worksheet. All right, so let's take a look at the webinar demo outdoor worksheet. So once again, this is the same pre-buy worksheet header. You can see at the top, again, you can use edit worksheet to change the style, add vendors, etc., etc. You also have the worksheet line settings. Again, a little bit of redundancy, but you can find the column information here. And then we go down a little bit into our summary information and the worksheet type. So I'm going to hide the sidebar summary for just a minute here so we can take a look at this. So now this is our outdoor board, and again, it's a little bit customizable. We are going to run a little over today. I apologize. There's a lot to cover on here, but I am recording this. So if you do have a hard stop, you can always reach out to us at support@bluhorn.com for a copy of the recording. Here is the name, the insertion date, vendor. You can enter a size, and this is a little bit more relevant for a traditional outdoor, but obviously there's a bajillion types of outdoor that you can buy now that are considered out of home, and you can use all of them in this style of worksheet. It just may not be relevant to have a size, so it is an optional field. Again, type is optional. Impressions, which is optional as well, but it allows you to keep track of those overall impressions. And this really comes into play when you're wanting to combine all of your impressions together for all worksheets in a campaign. And this can be combined for an overall impression total with your broadcast style worksheet. So impressions are becoming such a big thing in our industry that we want to make sure that you can pull your total impressions all together from all worksheet styles. So here's your impressions, again in abbreviated format, can be available. You can do a quantity, the board cost, a production cost, and it will calculate your total. Again, you can skip production cost, and it will skip that when calculating your total cost. And you can change this to manual. So what this is not automatically calculating because we've changed the worksheet style to manual, meaning you're going to manually indicate that net cost. This comes into play a lot of times with outdoor because the production costs are non-commissionable. So you may not want to mark those up for your rep, or I'm sorry, for your client. So you would just go into edit worksheet, and this is where you can turn off that automatic commission. And so we've changed this one to manual. It usually looks like this, auto. So when it's on manual, it doesn't matter what's here because you're telling the worksheet that you are going to indicate what you want your net amount to be, regardless of what's in the gross column. So this is great for those of you who are buying traditional outdoor with production costs that you're not going to gross at. We have a location column, which allows you to indicate more of that geo information. Again, deadlines, comments where you can add a little bit more about your flight information, etc. And again, copy, bold, delete, skip, which can all be utilized just like your broadcast worksheets. Now we're going to drop down to the bottom here and see all of this information. You can also customize a little bit more of what's available in your station summary, which is that bottom box where the summary information is. And I'm going to preview the order so you can take a look at this one. Here we go. So you can see the comments just like in other worksheets are in the red italics. We're also getting the summary box and comments as well. You're seeing how these are done. So if you enter a board cost, production cost, total, and net, you can also see if there's no production, it just indicates it as a 0. Again, I have some certain columns hidden and others not. So it will allow you to choose. Now you can see that was previewing them one over the other because there was 2 different vendors. So since I'm previewing it and I didn't select, this is one over the other, first outdoor company and then outside vendor, separate orders. All right. If there's no question about outdoor, we're going to move to the last worksheet type we're going to discuss today, and that is a little known or maybe little used feature of BluHorn just because I don't think as many people are aware of it with our worksheets and availability. So let's take a look at all worksheets, and that is our services worksheet. And again, services is really designed to help you track internal expenses. So if you have graphic design costs within your agency, social media that you're doing with internally, any other services. And we have a laundry list of service types in here that you can use and you can bill your client for, and that way it will include it in their overall totals if you want to provide some reporting. So again, this is the services type, and you can see the pre-buy information up here. We're also going to see worksheet line settings just like the others right here. And now we have a summary again over to the side, which I'm going to hide. Now I am going to look at this for consistency's sake in grid layout. However, you are able to use whichever you feel more comfortable with. But for consistency within this webinar, I'm going to keep everything in a grid layout so you can take a look. All right, so let's quickly go over this so I can take any questions if you have them. All right, I'm going to hide my summary, but you can see it's available over here. This one's a little bit more open, I guess you should say. So the service types, there's a long list of items that are available here. And you can see from promotions, events, printing, promotional products, direct mail, it goes up, public relations, web hosting, SEO, social media, web design, graphic design, creative, integration, teams, hosting, social media, SEO, just press releases, anything that you might be doing from an agency format, there is a type available. You can leave this blank if you so choose, but you can also use our pre-populated list. You can choose your vendor here, which you obviously need to have a vendor. Most of the time, if people are using this, they add their own agency or name as the vendor, but you do have to add in that vendor. The item, again, this will be populated based on if you select something over here, it may change what items are available, but this can also be left blank. The description is a totally type-based field, so you can type anything you'd like in this field and that will save. Start date and end date, and also a billing date can be indicated. So this allows you to kind of customize what you might be billing your client. There's a place for units, and this is, again, we leave some examples here, but you can straight type in this field. Quantity, impressions if you need it, especially if it's a social campaign. The gross unit and gross total. So this is going to base it on the quantity. So if I have a gross unit cost of 500 and a quantity of 1, it's going to give me the total of 500. If I change this to 2, it's going to change my gross total to 1,000. So it's taking this times this. You can also include impressions if you have them and you want to include them so that you can track them, as well as reference numbers. This could be an internal information. You can include a gross margin. You can also set a deadline and use comments just like our other types. The service order can be created just like your other types, and you can even send it to yourself if you're listed as the vendor, or any other services that you might be using. If they're outsourced services that your agency is using, you can send it to a third-party vendor just for them to sign off on. And really, again, it's to keep the ability for our users to be able to track all of their clients' expenses in one place. So you have the ability to customize this as well, including comments and traffic, just like our other worksheet styles. Keep in mind, you can still use the Create Order drop-down menu. It's a little bit smaller, and I didn't show it to you on the other worksheet styles, but it's a little bit smaller depending on which worksheet you're in, just because there's not as many things to do in them as there are in our broadcast worksheets. But you can still export all of these worksheet styles that I've just shown you to a CSV. You can also save them to QuickBooks if you integrate with QuickBooks Online through your BluHorn account. If you have questions about adding QuickBooks Online integration to your account, email us at support@bluhorn.com or use your life ring, which is even better, up here in your top right-hand corner to send us a message directly through your account for the fastest possible response. All right, I've gone through a lot of information. Keep in mind, these are all different worksheet styles, but again, you can set up as many worksheets as you'd like within any given campaign. So if you have a campaign that includes television, but you also want to bill your client for maybe some third-party production and you want to track that in the same campaign, you can go ahead and do a services worksheet and you'll be able to track all those expenditures in the same place. This is a great way to be able to keep track of your spending and be able to utilize the reporting that we have available in BluHorn a little bit more. Use the reports like our media planning report, which you can include all different styles and sections of worksheet types in one. You can also use order tracking and pending tracking for anything that you've ordered to keep it, again, all in one place. Don't forget that if you have a campaign that includes all different worksheet styles or even just one, you can use our overall quick campaign reports to pull all of the information together from all of the different worksheets that might be in your campaign. So this would pull together print, TV, services, radio, all in one place. On that campaign report. So just another way to make sure that you're fully utilizing your BluHorn account and a way to show you a few hidden things or hidden tips for how you can continue to use BluHorn for things outside of radio and television, which is by far our most used worksheet types. However, we do want to make sure you're aware of all that we have to offer. Stay tuned to your BluHorn emails for developments and updates as it comes for any of our worksheet styles, but in particular as we continue to evolve our digital worksheet. If there is no questions, I will let everyone go. Thank you for joining me today. Keep an eye out on the event calendar for future Monday meetup topics, which will all be loaded for October and November this week. Thank you again so much. I will stay on the line for a few moments if anyone has any questions. Have a great rest of your day. I do see a question coming through, so if anybody wants to stick around to hear the answer, please feel free.